Yeah, I'm gonna buy that one and that one. All of it. I need it all. Do you want it though? Where do I begin? I see the hate, they don't wanna see me win. Bank deposits, I got more coming in. Top down, throw the money in the wind. I don't want it all. Heard he scammer, had to switch up the accounts. Moving paper.
Hey guys, welcome to another session of Educators Roundtable. You know, we've talked about education equity, and as I stated before, it's going to be more than one episode. We're now in part 6, and actually it's a continuation of last week's conversation with Dr. Spinelli. She's the CEO of Tech Group. And you know, often we talk about curriculum, we talk about making data-driven decisions in our schools, and we look at how many times we've asked teachers to assess or evaluate where students are and to share that information with students and with parents, and sometimes with community stakeholders, in order for us to get funding or support that we need. But the real conversation tonight is, how do you take all of those things and pull them together where you get the support you need in your classroom by understanding how to use that data to ensure that all students are at grade level? And I know systematically we talk about grade level, and what does that really mean? Well, what that really means is, are we putting in the time to ensure that what we're providing to our students in the classroom and out of the classroom is ensuring that they are at grade level? Do we have the data to ensure that our students at home and at school are learning at the level that they need to? Well, tonight we're going to talk to the guru. We're going to talk to the guru of data and ensuring your student is learning at grade level. So teachers, school leaders, if this is like one of those must-see TV moments, this is a must-see episode. Dr. Spinelli is going to share with us a lot of things about her history in education, and then we're going to talk more about her company and what she can do for your school district. So I don't want to hold this up any further. We got to bring her in, and that's Dr. Spinelli. So how are you?
I am perfect, and it is good to be a part of your show.
Oh my God, I just want to tell you, I love having you here. Last week, we had a great conversation about the history of education and looking at the fact that we've just had an equity type of concern since the beginning of time. It's like, have we ever gotten on track? And so we talk further, and then we start talking about data. Our after show, and I always tell people the after show sometimes is better than the show itself, because we got a chance to do real talk. And we talked about how a lot of school districts are just kind of missing the loop on tying together that data. So what I want people to do is, I want them to get a chance to get to know you like I did and understand your journey to where you started to where you are now. So the first question, I know people are going to be wondering, where did she go to school? They want to know, like, where did she go to school? So what schools did you go to?
I can't tell you what school I went to until I tell you I grew up in the projects in Wilmington, North Carolina. And that is the thing that has grounded me my entire year. And that's why my foci is always making sure the least of these are learning at grade level or above, with the clear expectation. Okay, now that I've said that, the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, a BA in English, a couple of master's degrees in educational administration, one in educational supervision, then the 6-year degree, because I was not grandfathered in as a principal, in Atlanta at Clark Atlanta University, and of course a doctorate.
I love it. And I'm going to tell you, I think a lot of times people fail to realize that we continue to focus on things that impacted us as we were growing up. And although I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't know if we talked about this, I didn't go to school to be an educator. I didn't even like kids. I was just like, you know, I tried to go far away from that. And I went to school to be a chemist. And I was a chemist for years. And my dad asked me, he said, hey, if you're going to come back to Michigan, can you please go into the classroom and just teach chemistry? And I said, Dad, I don't even like kids. I mean, high school. I mean, what is this about? And I said, on top of that, they don't really pay. And I don't know. And I kept saying, but I don't like kids. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am so grateful that I did that, because my entire career pivoted. And I always say, in my first life, I was a chemist. In my second life, I was an educator. In my third life, I'm now a CEO of an IT consulting firm. So it's kind of like a little journey, right?
Right.
But it was the best time ever. And it really gave me a chance to see the education that was provided to me versus the education that was being provided to students when I was teaching. And I said, am I really preparing using the curriculum that we had? Was I really preparing students to then move forward to be a chemist? Like I was, and I felt like no. So of course I got really innovative and start bringing things into my classroom that wasn't the norm, wasn't part of the curriculum, and I started to rewrite it. And that's how I ended up going to school to get a master's in curriculum, right? So
Yeah.
it's like a full circle journey. Okay, so now with you, you have gone from gaining all these degrees along the way. And we don't want to negate the fact that you are a mom of two amazing kids who are in tech. I just want to throw that out. They're in tech.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, when you started, the first time you started in education, where was that and what impact were you thinking you were going to make on education when you first started that first job?
I started teaching English in a rural district in North Carolina. And what I really enjoyed was taking a group of non-readers that everyone had given up on. Of course, I had college prep, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the non-readers and how I pulled literature, how I pulled news articles, magazines, the songs they were singing, and how I immersed them in lots and lots of reading material. Their reading comprehension grew, and many of them went on to college. I kid you not.
So you
But
know what?
that was not the expectation.
So that's the thing I always say to people when you go in, is that like your expectation? Or what were you thinking when you started your first job? Because a lot of teachers, they go into education and I don't know what they're thinking, but when you get in there, it's like a whole different mix. So you go from, I grew up in a space where one, I probably wasn't provided with the best education. Then you blossomed in education. And then you said, not only did I blossom in it personally, now I'm going to go back and educate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you walked into that classroom and you're looking at a bunch of kids who are not reading at grade level, right? What were you thinking? Is this my moment? Or were you thinking like, I'm just scared crazy and I don't know what I'm going to do?
I was never scared because my entire career, long distance operator full time, but I also worked in the school district, long distance operator in the evening. And I always worked as a substitute teacher or a volunteer or something because I knew I belonged with kids and I knew I could inspire kids. And so I was not afraid. I was excited that I could take kids who just didn't think they could do anything. Many of them had behavior problems. They were determined they weren't going to do anything. And we all saw them blossom. They saw each other blossom, raise the level of expectation, and they came along for the ride.
I love that. So it sounds like you're an out of the box educator, an out of the box thinker. So what is one strategy that you would suggest to teachers use that and I know that was some time ago when you were in a classroom, but what is one thing that you used that you felt like this was really that pivotal point when I knew that these kids who were not reading at grade level made that transition?
Now, I hear your question and I'm thinking as I respond, and I want to respond to it in a more holistic way.
Okay.
So I come from the education sector where I've been teacher, principal, deputy superintendent, chief of accountability, et cetera, but also on the corporate side where I've been chief officer of information technology, kind of like you, but doing business within the education K-12 sector. And this is what I noticed. This is what my modus operandi, this is what really got me. Mm-hmm. In the corporate arena, you don't manufacture things that don't work. Mm-hmm. You go out of business. If you do, you have no customers. But in education, we continue to do the same thing to kids and we get the same results. Yep. But if you step out of that box, what I recognized is that when you raise that bar of expectation for children, without exception, they come along for the ride. And I've been able to apply that principle in school districts. That's how I got into Baltimore to start with. I had 4 schools that were assigned to me. The state was going to take them over. And I had a contract running my business to go in and drive achievement. And within 1 year, they came out of program improvement. It's a simple formula. Every kid was at grade level or above. I used the power of data to drive achievement.
So, you know what, that is so amazing that even at that point in time, you understood the need for data to be used in a classroom. And I know a lot of times, and I won't even profess to be anything in English in that parameter. I used to stay to science and mathematics. That's where my sweet spot was. And I taught some computer courses, and of course robotics, because I'm just a techie girl. But I'm going to tell you, I think one of the greatest things that transitioned me was that my teacher allowed me to read comic books. I really wasn't into like social studies too much, but I knew I had to learn it, to get out. And so I made sure I mastered it and got an A. But comic books, it was my English teacher who said, okay, I think this is a different motivator for her. And so basically it gave me an opportunity to reimagine myself, but it also excited me that I could see where these female superheroes were going. And so that kind of, because I was a quiet kid, I didn't talk a lot. So that was very inspiring for me. So for you, now you've made the journey from the classroom and now you're in an administrator role.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that kind of change the lens of how you pushed out the information you knew that was necessary versus now you kind of control kids in your classroom. Now you're over multiple classrooms. So how did that impact your strategy?
You have to recognize that when you're dealing with children, and so we do contracts with school districts to help them understand how they can improve achievement. And so children know if they're in a red bird, blue bird, green bird, buzzard group, they know. And kids that are in the buzzard group, they believe that, they aren't, but they succumb to that. And so I've been able to bring a whole breath of fresh air by convincing teachers it's okay. We don't care what they read, in a sense we do, but the more they read, the better readers they're going to become. And their math scores are going to come along for the ride, because a lot of math is application and problem solving. But if you can't read, you can't do any of that. And I've just enjoyed on contract, keynoting conferences around the country where there were teachers who were Title I teachers who were remediating kids. Because that's what they thought they had to do. And when I talked about raising the bar on my contracts, when I've gone in, they've raised the bar, and I've been able to show statistically that kids are moving in the right direction based upon multiple indices of measure, not just one. And so when you look at that data, you can influence change. It may be difficult for a teacher in the very beginning.
It is.
Over time, kids blossom. And it doesn't take a long time if they're reading what they enjoy.
And, I think that's a very clear point that I think a lot of teachers and a lot of people need to take in consideration. So when you look at yourself being an administrator, your first route to initiating a conversation with the teachers, because at this point, I'm going to tell you, working as a school leader, I had teachers who had the same curriculum plan that they just did not change, and they did the same thing. So how did you convince these teachers as a school leader to take a different approach to executing curriculum in the classroom? So what was your first step through your third step in working with teachers to convince them they had to make a shift?
Let me take it down to the principalship. When I came in as a young principal at age 23 in Atlanta from out of state, which is something you just do not do. And so I was told achievement had better grow by J. Jerome Harris, the superintendent whom I loved at that time. He's the one that convinced me the data was king. And so he sat us in a room and he said to us, 110 principals, I'm going to look at your data and we're going to examine it from 0 to 25, 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 100. You're going to get a bell curve. And your bell curve is going to be skewed left. And so what I need for you to do, which is what Vygotsky's zone of proximal development says, which is what Jean Shaw, may she rest in peace, the noted Harvard researcher says, give children lots of information, teach them at grade level or above. It's the only way you're going to move that bell curve to the right. He said this, I'm going to check. And the next time I check, and God forbid the end of the year, if that bell curve has not moved to the right, you're fired. I was so excited because I didn't know then what I know now. But that's when I began to change the whole philosophy about how we approach kids. Every kid, without exception, and my teachers agreed, would be taught at grade level. Now, we use the James Madison School methodology for using lots and lots of literature. And I brought IBM in, teach my kids, and the teachers were in the back of the room as they compared and contrasted characters between books and within a single book. Now that's one really good way to get reading going. But then you have to have a measure. And so my measure, we had IBM, computers, and IBM program, and we had Jocelyn's Learning sitting on Apple computers. And so it was tightly correlated to the year-end assessment. I made sure that the curriculum was and kids were at grade level. Now, Stouffer Beam and Google contend the only way you can have scientific data is to have data that is inherent to a system and it gives you an even flow of information. And that's what I use. So I was able to walk into staff meetings and show statistically with graphs, you think you taught them, but the mean is here. Miss Smith, you're here. Miss Green, you're here. Miss Green, you go and observe Miss Smith, and I'm going to cover this class for you. And so we did a lot of that. Within 1 year, we became the highest performing school in the city of Atlanta. Schools are drowning in data. Don't get me wrong. They have a lot of data, but it's what you do with it.
It is exactly what you do with it. So you guys, we've got to take a commercial break. But when we come back, we're actually going to talk through the difference of looking at your data and analyzing your data and how she did that as a superintendent. Because when I say to you, she's changed school districts, not just the one she worked in, but several across the country. So we're going to go to commercial, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how you actually use data in your classrooms.
You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day.
Hey guys, welcome back. And if you missed the first session, we were talking about education. And we're talking about education in perspective. How do you use data? How are we looking at data? How are we using data to really drive education in our classrooms? So let's welcome back Dr. Spinelli so we can continue the conversation. So Dr. Spinelli, what does that look like for you when you talk about education?
So, that's kind of a broad question, but at the end of the day, I enjoy making good trouble, as John Lewis would always say. If it meant that boys and girls, at the end of the day, we're going to be better off. And that's by using any means possible. Now, I can take that down to when I was chief of accountability in Baltimore City Public Schools, when the state announced they were going to take over 6 schools.
Okay.
And we had no clue that they were going to do that. And so I took the school board president and the superintendent to meet with the state superintendent and challenged the statistical validity of the formula. It was wrong. It was inherently wrong because there's so many other indices of measure that they did not account for, like rate of mobility.
Yeah.
Like the test lasted for 5 days, but if a mother is on crack cocaine and a kid was an A student, if he only was there for 2 days, there's no way he could pass. Rate of mobility, if you don't have them, you can't teach them, and they move from here to here to here. Special education, we had over 75,000 special education children identified in Baltimore City. Were they special education? No. Right. They were special. However, they got a different test, and we were excelling on the California Achievement Test. Not only did I challenge it, I think they thought I was through, but I wasn't. I took a cadre of 350 parents on buses and went before the Maryland legislature.
I love you.
On the floor. And you should have seen them shaking their
I love you.
prayer meeting talking about, oh my God, this one, and they voted on the floor to dismiss the state's takeover of those 6 schools.
So you're like a revolutionary game changer in education, using data. Like whoever would have thought that a person using data would be like a game changer in education. I'm going to say I applaud you. I mean, getting parents that riled up, and more importantly, that interested in what their kids are doing in the classroom. And I know we're going to talk about your program, but I do really want to talk more about that in this segment. You really work with parents and teachers and even students in understanding their data.
Right. Parents believe, and this is not my opinion, this is national research, that they're sending their children to school. Think about it, even the poorest parent, with the latest tennis shoes and the latest outfits and all of this good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They think these kids are learning at grade level, but they aren't.
Okay.
In Title I schools, what we tend to do across the country, that's why when we test every year, our kids fail. The kids are smart.
Right.
That's what we're doing to them.
Mm-hmm.
When you raise that bar, they come along for the ride. How can you, and this is a stupid question, how can you catch the flu if you have not been exposed? Probably a bad parable right about now.
I love that analogy.
So you have to make sure, without exception, I would say every day, that kids read at grade level or above. As Deputy Superintendent in Norfolk, Virginia, we implemented a program, Achieve 3000. And these kids were able to access this program on their parents' cell phones. And I bribed them. I gave them money for the kids who read the most over the holidays, etc. There was a tight correlation between that curriculum and student performance on the Virginia Standards of Learning. And parents had to let go of their cell phones because the kids took over. And you know what? The parents loved it. They called me and I would answer the phone any time of night. And they were just bragging on how their babies were reading and comprehending and just how their life was changing because the kids were actively engaged.
I'm going to tell you, that's the best thing. I know for me, when I was in the classroom, I used multiple different strategies to get my kids excited in science. And you know, when I started out in the classroom, I was using the books like any other teacher. I was using the curriculum that they gave me, and I could see that my kids really weren't motivated. And I said, you know what? I had to remember, and like my dad was playing in my head, I want the kids to fall in love with science the way you did. And that just kept playing to me. So I took one weekend and I started thinking about what would excite kids, and I started doing research. And at that point, the kids, that kind of goes back how many years I was teaching, but they were into tie-dyeing and writing on clothes at the time.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was I got a friend of mine who worked at a t-shirt company, Hanes, back out east. And I said, can you ship me 200 t-shirts and tell them that it's for a school. And you can tell them that we're giving it away to kids who don't have undershirts. I don't care, but I just need these t-shirts. They shipped me the t-shirts. I called another friend of mine and I said, I need your company to buy me X amount of markers. And they were like, what? I said, it's for my classroom. You can write it off, but I need some markers. So they shipped me the markers. I got the t-shirts. And so we started to talk about photosynthesis. We started to talk about colors. We started to talk about fabrics. And I said, I want everybody to look at everything that you're wearing. And I want you to get on the computers and start researching, what is cotton made of? How do you make cotton? Where does it come from? Where does denim come from? Like, what chemical elements are in that denim? Because she's wearing black denim. You're using blue denim. Obviously, there's some dye in that, right? And so by the end of 2 weeks, obviously it took a little minute for my stuff to come. By the end of 2 weeks, every kid had a t-shirt, they had markers, and they had all the chemicals. And they came into the classroom, I had everything laid out. And I said, today, we're going to make tie-dye t-shirts. They were like, how is this science? This is science. This is real science. So all of you guys who want to get into fashion design, if you want to do this, I'm going to show you how to create a line of clothing that's customized using science. We went through that entire science project. And I'm going to tell you, I had no idea what a huge impact it was going to be. I had parents in my classroom the following week. In my classroom, I thought I had done something wrong. Anytime you walk in on a Monday and parents are in your room, you're like, hi, good morning. And the parents kept coming in. Those parents asked the principal, obviously, could they come because they wanted to see what this teacher was doing. I taught in an urban school district where my kids, the majority of them were in gangs, normally did not come to school. And they fell in love with me and I had no idea. But the kids went home and showed their parents what they had made and explained it in a scientific way. Because we did it was an experiment. And so when you use the scientific method to explain, and then they start going through with mom, this is a synthetic, and this is what's in a synthetic. And I was like, oh my God. And so they all came to my class and I was so impressed. So from that, the governor at the time, she showed up to my classroom. And I was like alarmed because I didn't know what was happening. But what I saw was that when you think outside of the box and you're showing kids something that they need to know, but you're taking it to their level, I raised their interest in science, which in turn did what you did, which is bringing them now up to grade level. I just kind of shifted what I shared with them. And
it.
so I thought it was really great. And from that, every school that I worked at, principals was like, she's out of the box. She doesn't use our curriculum, but she has the highest test scores.
Love
So
it.
like, don't fool with her
Mhm.
because this is what she does. And I did do that. I used to tell the counselors, when you schedule kids, tell me what their GPA is, and then send me some test data. Because before school started, I would start to analyze who I needed to work on in what area. So when it came to reading, we would do more reading. I would have them do presentations so they can actually interpret what it is that they're saying. Yeah. And so it's a great opportunity. But I'm going to tell you what you're doing right now in education when it comes to data and working with school districts is absolutely amazing. And I felt like, I was like ahead of my time and you were ahead of your time. And now we're getting together. I kind of think this is the time for people to realize how important this is.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not to say our kids are like pretty cool kids. I don't know. I think us using our kids as an experiment, we did pretty good, right?
Didn't do too bad.
Right? We didn't do too bad. If we look at our product, our end result, we didn't do too bad. So
No.
you look at that. So we're going to go into our second half. And I'm excited because when I tell you guys, she has two dynamic programs that she's going to share with us. And again, if you're an educator and you're watching us, you really need to reach out to Dr. Spinelli so she can bring this to your school district. When I say to you, it's a game changer. We talked about Achieve 3000, and I'm going to tell you, I've used Achieve 3000. I think it's an amazing tool to use in school districts. And share with us quickly, like your experience with Achieve 3000 and the reason why you decided to go with that versus something else.
I actually helped Saki Dodelson, the owner of the company, develop the product and transition it from paper to technology. So I understood full well exactly what she was doing and kind of guided her mission with always remembering the end in mind. You have to consider what impact is the time the kids spend on this technology going to have on how will they perform at the end of the year.
Good job.
And that's how that program was developed, and that's how it continues to run. But that's just one of many. I want to applaud you though with what you did in the science classroom. And I want to bring out the point. I don't even know if you're aware, in your classroom, you probably had special ed. Yeah. You probably had some kids in that buzzard. You probably had some kids that were gifted. And you know what? They were all taught at the same level.
At the same
they
level.
all came along for the ride.
Yep.
Didn't the parents so love it?
They so loved it. I think I probably shared with you guys, my son and I, we went to a Pistons game and we were watching the Pistons game. And I was so excited just to see Aretha Franklin with this pink fur coat on. And we were just a couple, like she was on the floor, but we were a couple rows behind her. And it went to halftime and this guy comes down and I can see him in my peripheral. He's coming down the stairs and he stopped at the end of my row and he yells, "Are you Miss Burkett?" And I was thinking, oh my God, what is happening right now in this moment? Should I say that it's me? And I was turned around. I was like, oh, yeah, hi, how are you? So you're Miss Burkett? I said, yeah, I'm Miss Burkett. Oh, we thought so. And he says, turn around. And I turned around. He said, those are my two sons. They were in your science class. They're both in engineering in college.
Yeah.
And he said, I know it wasn't me or my wife because we don't have anything to do with math or science, but they talked about you every day. Yeah. And every year they took one of my classes in high school because I would start teaching earth science, biology, chemistry, physics, and I was just like, okay. And they were like, hey, Miss Burkett. And I was like, oh my God. So I looked at my son who's sitting next to me. And this is what he says to me. Because at this point, I'm looking away from them thinking I'm a rock star, right? I should be sitting next to Aretha Franklin. My son pats me on the shoulder. He says, good job, Mom. You did your job. Good job. I was just like, that's it? Is this all that you're giving your mother? This is the moment teachers live for, right? That legacy moment.
Exactly. That's what it's all about.
And I'm going to tell you, even now to this day, when I do work, all I expect people to say is good job. Yeah. That's it, because he's right. If you're doing your job, it's a good job. Yeah. Okay, guys, so we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to get started with parent power. And all I got to say is stay tuned, because parent power is going to knock your socks off. When I tell you Dr. Spinelli has put together an amazing program, it's a must-see.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Dose.
Okay, guys, we're back. And as promised, we are going to review this amazing program. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I think you're a rock star in education. I am so impressed with you and everything you've accomplished in education. And I'm just saying, if you're a school leader, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent watching, reach out to her. This is an amazing program. And trust me, she will come out and present to you guys. Well, now we can do it virtually, as you guys see. So you can get a virtual presentation, but you really need to consider this. So go ahead and walk us through it. Let me know when you need me to transition your slides. I'm really excited about this.
I'll start, Christine, with a rhetorical question.
Okay.
What is the one thing that all parents have in common? I don't care if they're homeless. I don't care if they're wealthy. And the one bill that they always pay, if they don't pay anything else, that's a mobile smartphone.
Exactly. I was going to say their cell phone. They all pay a cell phone bill.
And so I thought, when kids don't achieve in a school district, it's not because of the kid. The kids are smart. It's because of what we do to them. And so we'll start. I want to tell you that parent power gives parents the power to understand where their kids are achieving, to receive links to information that can build proficiency at grade level, to understand exactly what's expected at the year-end assessment, tips to help them understand so much about their children. They care, parents love them. I know I did. But it's not often that a parent feels comfortable going to a classroom, speaking with a teacher. And this Parent Power program takes care of the parents, gets them their information. For example, and parents don't have to know which other kids are getting this information, but in Title I, there's a requirement that the lowest quartile of that population must grow.
Okay.
And so we're looking at data on the back end, and we're dealing with those parents in particular and giving them extra things that they need at grade level to help bring these kids along.
I love it.
This is our team, and a team of seasoned educators from around the country, actually, former principal. But I'll tell you, for myself, when I was a manager at an IT company, I managed the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It is the only test that every state uses, almost every school system, but not every school system. I know Detroit uses the NAEP assessment, and that's not every kid.
Right.
That is, a statistical amount of kids within a district. I was responsible for managing and housing the NAEP assessment and interacting with the U.S. Department of Education. It was their contract to make sure, yes, you're doing this assessment, but the implications of the data, we've got Asian kids off the chart, white kids next to them, Mexican, Hispanic kids, Latinx here, and Black kids are down here. What is with that? And again, this is something that Parent Power addresses. I'll also mention, too, that I won the contract when I was Senior Vice President Officer of another company in Virginia, and we designed the very first high-stakes online assessment for the state of Virginia, the VSOL, and it's still in use. I share that with you to let you know that I know enough about assessments. I know enough about data to cut through the chase and make sense of it so that our kids and our parents get the information that they need to help kids come along. And on the other side, we work with teachers. They help them understand. You think you taught them, but based upon what the requirements are, if you're using Common Core standards, if you're using a curriculum, by the end of this period of time, we expect for kids to be able to demonstrate proficiency in this.
We do.
Let me show you how your kids are doing. And so we take the parents' perception and work with the teachers, and we take what teachers believe is most important, and we work with parents, and we're going in between, and the vehicle that we drive is a smartphone.
I love it. So, the techie in me is jumping up and down because you are using the phone. I want to say, how many people have turned around and went back home to get a phone, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it's one of those things now. Obviously, we can't live without, and you guys are using it. So with Parent Power, if a school district signs up for this, that means every parent would have access to this platform?
Yes, the first thing that we do, and let me tell you, this technology is working at the college and university level. It is called artificial intelligence because it receives data, it makes sense of it, and it helps us move forward in the right direction intuitively without having to make a decision. And so our parents, and just let me say this, our parents deserve actionable data. So there were benchmark assessments. Do parents really know what their kids made on a benchmark assessment? And what does a benchmark assessment mean? And when is the next one coming? All of that. Achievement in Detroit Public Schools, attendance in Detroit Public Schools is very low. So what if you send messages out to parents to say, we're doing a virtual school today. It's really important that your kid log in. Did you know he wasn't attending? And we can pull that data in from the back end to help kids who aren't engaged become engaged. There's just so much that we can do with the information that's available to make a difference in the lives of children at home. And parents want to help. I know it's been my experience that they just need to know what to do. Even a parent who's on drugs, they're not on drugs all the time. They want their babies to succeed. And so if you're communicating with them, the first thing we do is send a link to a parent. We have information that we're going to be sharing on your child throughout the year to help you understand what the expectations are of you as a parent so that your kid makes A's and succeeds throughout the year. Do you opt in or do you opt out? Tell me a parent is going to say no.
I don't know too many parents that would say no to that. And I also agree with you. All parents want their kids to learn, regardless of their personal circumstances. So when you guys have, let's say a school district that has a large percentage of their students who are not achieving at grade level, what is the first thing you guys going to do to help integrate this program?
So there are certain non-negotiable things that kids should know incrementally throughout the year. There are links for reading, and those links can be what the school system is currently using. It doesn't have to be another program. It can be a link to a resource that helps a parent understand what the expectations are, a link to a parent who has a child in the third grade. Click that link on your cell phone. Now, read with your child, or at least listen while your child reads this passage, because it is at grade level, and that's where you want your child to be. And so it's just been my experience as an educator that parents want the best for their children. They're not going to come to school. We do virtual parent power nights. We give surveys to determine what parents are thinking. And we synthesize that information, make sure teachers understand. But parent power nights, we do two things. One, we talk about what they said, and we address those issues, okay? And that could be anything from behavior, or my kid's on drugs, or what do I look for? And we have experts that take care of that, not people just thinking.
Okay.
The other part, and it's just 1 hour, the other part, that 30 minutes, is non-negotiable. This is what your child must learn within the next 30 days. We try to do those monthly. This is what we expect for them to know in reading and math. We can't cover every subject, but we can do due diligence in reading and mathematics. That's what parent power nights are.
I like that. I like the parent power nights. And that's one of the things right now that a lot of school districts, in talking with parents, they feel disconnected. So when you guys look at working with parents, and I can only talk from my experience, one of the things that I found that the parents really feel like they don't have the skill set to help their kids, with reading, with writing, with mathematics. I mean, so do you guys sit down during parent night and kind of help them with those skills and strategies?
We're doing a parent night virtually. If there is a need to work with a group of parents, I really understand from a technology perspective how to fast forward that. For example, if a group of parents have not completed their GED, we have another solution that can take care of that for them, 4 teachers to 1 particular parent, with a very short ride for getting them a GED. So if they're having trouble reading, don't you know that if kids are reading at grade level and they're achieving, even though teachers might think they need to be remediated. Don't you know parents read what they want to read? Even non-reading parents can make sense of words. That's how they survive. The more they read, the better readers they become. So they can learn right along with their kids.
I think that would be perfect. A friend of mine, which I thought was very interesting, we were talking the other day, and she said, you know, the guy that I've been dating for about 5 years, mind you, he's a very successful businessman. It just shocked me. She says he doesn't know how to read. And it blew me away. And I said, are you kidding me? She's like, no, he doesn't know how to read. She says, I just found out. And I said to myself, how old? She says, he's 67. So here he has a successful business and he does not know how to read. And so that kind of shocked me. So only thing I can say is there are parents still out there, there are people still out there that cannot read. Yeah, Marie, thank you so much for watching us. Maria said, excellent points, Dr. Spinelli. Keep parents empowered and engaged in their child's learning in real time. I love it. Thank you so much, Maria, for watching. I'm going to tell you, I think parents, because the cell phone is in use, so that's one thing. You got the cell phone, right? You guys have parent power, nights, and I know parents are going to love that. What is something else that's going to really push parents to be advocates for this program for you?
I think parents are going to talk among themselves once it's simply going to ignite. And when I say ignite, that's what I've experienced when I've had parent programs in other school districts that were different from this. Parents want to be engaged. And so, they'll be getting things on their cell phone about their child. Now, we include discipline infractions also.
I love it. That's okay.
Not attend. All of that goes straight to a parent's cell phone.
And so that was one of the things that I wanted you to say specifically. I wanted you to let them know it's not just about reading, that the platform itself offers some additional information to really keep parents engaged. So if you know that you're a parent, and I can only tell you as a teacher, I didn't have any problems with my son acting out. He's been going to school with me since he was like, I think my first master's, pulling his little book bag. So he thinks school is just a way of life. But I know I had some kids who just had huge discipline issues. And I realized two things. One, there was something going on at home. It was a disconnected home. And two, they probably didn't understand what I was covering. So it made them frustrated. So I would keep them after class so we can talk through, what didn't you understand today? And then I would call the parent. And then I often found out it was some issues, like you said, at home. So when you talk about that, and in here, how do you work with the student who doesn't have the support at home, and you're trying to keep them on track? Like, is there something that you're working with within the school district in order, like teachers and other support options, to help pull them together to rally around this kid? Because your program is awesome, but we got those parents that may, not be our number one parents.
Yeah, we try not to do anything in isolation from a teacher. As a matter of fact, and the part that I left out is that teachers are really giving us the information that we need to kind of drive student performance at grade level or above. So we're communicating with teachers the whole time, and we're communicating with parents the whole time. And if necessary, we can hold student sessions also, which would be a lot of fun for me. I would really enjoy that. So
I like that because one, everything is accessible via the phone, and the mere fact that kids can join into meetings themselves. And you know what? I always found that the teamwork with other students, because in those meetings with students, they could meet somebody else that they could actually join and work with. Like if you don't have the parent, you can get another student to work with you, right? So that's just a great opportunity.
Yeah. And my mind goes back, though, to a real, and I'm kind of a real situational kind of person. When I was deputy superintendent in Norfolk, Virginia, I bribed kids to participate. And so I gave money, $100, to the highest, the kids who were on the system for the longest amount of time. There's a direct correlation. And kids like getting the prizes. So parents just didn't have their phones. And I'm talking about low-income parents. I'm talking about, parents who had issues, but they didn't have an issue when that kid needed that phone and I say kid affectionately, when that kid needed that phone to read one of the passages that he knew he or she, if you read so many, you're going to get a prize for. Kids love being bribed.
That's a huge motivator. And I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes if that's what it takes to get you there, then you do it.
Yeah.
But, for me, it's like you guys have done the research. So even in this slide, you guys are saying to increase parent involvement. Kind of walk us through that, the different things that you've done for academic and also for attendance.
Yeah, there is a direct correlation between parental engagement and without exception, and you just type it into Google when you have an opportunity. What happens when parents are engaged? You'll see this without exception. The grades go up. There are expectations, except we're helping them understand what to expect now. So they really go up. The kids' skill level improves. They attend school better. They're in higher level programs. If you peel back the onion and you look at what's happening in an Algebra 1 class, and Christine, I know you can relate to this, I'm sure, this science math thing, because I'm an English connoisseur. And so kids, almost without exception in middle school, and I've done a lot of work around the country in this regard, they're failing algebra.
Yeah.
It's not the kids, it's the teachers. And so when you begin to look at that data, and the data tells you that the kids aren't achieving, but a teacher is getting paid to grow success,
there's
got to be some conversations, whether it's between the parent and the teacher, or whether it's between our group and the school. Because at some point, we have an obligation to create success for these kids. The more parents are involved, the higher the level of performance goes, and improved attendance. We can send it. Your kid didn't attend school today. I know we're virtual, but you got to get them logged on. Incentives for that. It improves their social skills. They know how to react, how to interact with other kids. It improves their functional skills. Post-school outcomes, they graduate, they go on to college because they're coming every day and they see the big picture. It promotes positive behaviors. They're going to act right. If they know their parents are looking, I know I did. I know my kids.
Yes.
And they have a whole different improved attitude towards school. Probably will cut down on gang violence too when I think about it.
And I'm going to agree with you 100%. I think being a parent, my kid never knew when I would pop up to the school, because being an educator, I would pop up to his school and he knew it. I don't wait for invitations. And the other thing is being in tech, one of the things that I loved is when we launched over at Detroit Public Schools, way before the pandemic, we launched virtual in 4 different schools where the kids had laptops and we had cameras. So parents could chime in the classrooms and kind of see what their kid was doing on their own, because the thing is we had nothing to hide, right? And it was just a pilot program we ran in 4 schools. It was extremely successful. The academics in those 4 classes skyrocketed because kids knew at any moment my mother could be watching me from the phone, paying attention and chiming in. So that was like the kids stayed right on point, and we saw that. And I'm going to tell you, just personally working in the school where I knew a couple of my kids were gang members, when their parents start showing up, those kids really kind of switched, you know? So I'm going to say that's so true. Parent involvement is key to this. And I like that you guys have this. So I'm going to tell you, I'm all about charts. So I'm fully into this chart and I was loving it. And, I wanted to kind of see if I can blow some things up for you, but just kind of go ahead and share with
the blue part on the right just shows a cycle of how we process data. We pull data out of all of the silos where it exists, and we use it to help each kid who has a separate, unique identifier. So we send messages that are individualized. Some of them are not. Some of them are generic messages. If you're talking about a benchmark assessment, if you're talking about objectives that a kid needs to demonstrate proficiency, and a parent ought to know that. When they know that, there's so many other ways that they can help. And this is how we do it: live chat, where we have a team of people. If a parent has a question, educators, and we tend to pay teachers within the school to answer the live chat within a certain window of time, so parents are getting immediate feedback. One-to-one texting that goes in with that also. It's proactive, and it happens throughout the entire school year. Conversational chatbots, and you've seen those. And so, it's almost like a robot that has all of this information. Well, our teachers will tell us what all of the critical pieces of information kids need to know that parents need to be aware of. And it's in the form of a chatbot. The technology company that handles that for us develops them and continues to develop them because it changes all the time as parents are engaged. And smart nudges. Talk about attendance. 5 days of virtual school. And this student only missed the first 2 days. Smart nudges to the parent who probably doesn't even know the kid didn't log in.
Exactly.
Would get the student on board because he knows he's being watched. The likelihood of the student messing up the next time and sitting out on a virtual class would be less likely.
I love it. That is so interactive.
You know, educators are sometimes afraid that artificial intelligence is going to take over and they won't have jobs. And that is so not true. There is nothing that can replace that human touch.
Yes.
That teachers will always be there. Everybody's had a teacher, everybody's going to have a teacher. However, there's something to be said for artificial intelligence. And Christine, I know you know in the line of work that you do too, behavioral intelligence can take information and make assumptions from all of the information that parents are sending us to a cell phone. And we can begin to prescribe other things based upon what technology is seeing that parents need or that kids need. If we're looking at, and we do look at multiple indices of measure, we're looking at reading upper placement, report card grades, student attendance, benchmark assessments, other assessments that teachers think are important. So we're pulling that information, we're making sense of it. We work with teachers to help them understand it. But there's some aspects of that that need to go to a parent. And so the chatbot and the other stuff that I mentioned, parents get information on their cell phone as a result of a synthesis, an ongoing analysis of what's being said. This is just an example of what could occur. Ms. Jameson, the interim assessment is scheduled for Monday. Be sure to get lots of rest and be sure he gets lots of rest and be sure he reviews the first 3 chapters in reading and his multiplication facts.
I love that one.
For a parent to get that, you know, two-way communication. And this is when I have a teacher that's been paid that fully understands what's going on in the school. Wow, I had no idea. So schedule a time to speak with Joseph's reading and math teachers and ask for learning objectives that can assist Joseph at home. We would include a link right here so that Joseph would have a link that the parent could touch and Joseph could sit there and go through it.
I love
It's
that.
pretty exciting. Then the surveys, you know, the school districts say they survey parents. You know what? They survey the parents that show up or the parents that
You need all the parents' feedback, even the ones that are not present.
Every parent has a cell phone, and if we make the survey questions appealing and the principal and the teachers kind of drive this, we get an immediate response. And the AI technology is synthesizing this, so we don't have to wait. We know exactly what the masses are saying, so we can alter what we do.
I love that. That's like the biggest issue most school districts have. Like you said, they assess the people who are there, and if you're not in the room, then they don't really get your voice.
Exactly.
Okay. So you know this part, when I reviewed it and I was looking at it, I wanted to jump on. You do know that, right? Like I wanted to just do this. So talk everybody through this whole moment because I'm in love with this section. I think this is virtual education at its best.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Everything all pulled together. What I want to say about this chart that's most important is that now this might not be the case in some school districts, but many school districts have parents who don't speak English, and that could be Chinese. We offer what we do. So when the chatbots come or when the text messages come, a parent can click and select his or her language.
I love this.
It removes that element of mystique. So, you know, now parents who don't speak English are more comfortable interacting because, now they understand exactly what kids are learning. I think that's the most important part of what this implies. It doesn't matter. And again, I'll reinforce reading links, but also math links. As you know, math, don't let me tell you what math is, Christy, but math is a spiral curriculum. And once
it is
upon the other. And I want to also reference Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. I don't think I've talked about that. And he's a noted research theorist from way back. And there are 3 circles, if you might imagine.
Yeah.
The first circle is what a kid can do on his own. So he can read, I say at grade level, on his own. The next circle is what a kid can do with the help of a parent or peer. And so that means the parent with the proper information can help a kid move from the center circle to the next circle. And that continues all year. Then there's that third circle that Vygotsky said, and I tend to disagree with him, but I make trouble on behalf of kids. And Vygotsky says there's certain things that kids just can't do, and you can't expect them to do. And that's that third circle. But I submit to the court, Your Honor, that I had kindergarten kids who were proficient in Kiswahili and Spanish, who were at the Capitol in Atlanta. If you can imagine, looking down, they were solving for X and Y, doing trigonometry, addition, division, going to 4th and 5th grade classrooms with the teacher in the back of the room showing kids how to subtract and regroup. So Vygotsky, I don't know about your outer external.
That outer one, you're not with it. Okay, and I'm going to tell you, Brian says, if this had been around when I was in school, my parents would have been on my butt for sure.
I believe
so. I'm going to tell you guys, this virtual parent power seminars, it's bilingual. They get monthly prizes for participating. It's ongoing teacher engagement. They also have proactive data-driven decision-making. It's for elementary, middle school, and high school. They have monthly virtual parent power seminar sessions. Listen, guys, this is definitely an opportunity to engage your school district, to engage parents, for you guys to look at this and try to find out, is this an opportunity to help us shift what we're doing in our school district? Because again, I'll tell you, there's very few things around. And in my tech world, I've seen a lot. And especially, and I'm going to say, I think I was supposed to be a special education teacher. I love my autistic kids. Those are like my favorite ones, were my autistic kids, because they were just smarter than the average bear. But the challenge was getting to that. And that's what I love most, trying to figure out how to get to that.
I did a lot of work personally in District 75 in New York City. That is a special education district. And I was there in contract with my company because they liked the nonsense that I was saying. Special education is not a difference in kind, it's a difference in amount. There is no reason why this young man, who could be in the 4th grade, who is handicapped physically and probably mentally too, but there is no reason why he should not be learning 4th grade material. It's not as much as the rest of the class. And don't you think for 1 minute they don't know the difference?
Oh, they do know the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, those kids used to stay on me.
And then, we have too many kids that are minority kids that are placed in special education because of their behavioral problems. There's nothing wrong with these babies. So that's even more of a reason to raise. So I'll tell you, this slide just speaks to Title I. Title I across the nation, mostly minority kids. It's based on SES, school and free reduced lunch. So many schools, the whole district is Title I. There is a percentage of Title I dollars that must be obligated by law for parental engagement. You have school districts doing things like Parent University. A parent wants to go to a university. I can't think.
I'm going to tell you, I've designed at least 12 of those parent universities for school districts. And you're right. They don't.
I don't want to go to a university. I've had enough of it already. And so, do you want to work? Do you want to provide services and resources for a select group of parents who are going to be there who have it anyway? Or do you want to open the door for multiple parents to benefit, especially from the Title I funds? We give things like televisions, parent night, or whatever the big thing.
Love that.
And they only won, but through attendance, they have an opportunity to win. And so, it's kind of a reward or an appetizer to get people engaged.
I'm going to tell you, I don't even know where our time went tonight because, I get excited just you and I being on. So guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Dr. Spinelli is going to give us her closing and what you need to do on next steps to bring this to your school district. And I'm just going to tell you, like I always do, this is a great opportunity for you guys. So quick commercial break, and then we're going to go to how you can get this to your school district. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you this has been an amazing show. So, Dr. Spinelli, please tell us what words you're going to leave us with. You have so much knowledge to share with us. I don't even know what you're going to say, but I'm glad it's being recorded so I can rewatch it a couple times.
I just want to just say briefly and succinctly, there is no reason why any child should be going to school every day and not learning at the assigned level or grade to which he's been appointed. I say every kid should learn at grade level or above, because when I was a principal, I had special ed, I had gifted, and I had normal kids, kind of like me.
Yeah.
But we taught every kid at grade level or above and raised that bar, and many of them came along for the ride, ultimately become the highest achieving school in the city. I know enough about test data to know that our children who score low on standardized achievement tests simply don't understand the degree of construct validity of the items. And oh, yes, we handle that too. They may know the answer, but they're not accustomed to the way it's written. Parent power will give parents, will give kids an opportunity to know what they need to know, to be exposed to the flu we hope they'll catch. So at the end of the year, we've got achievement going off the charts. It's not the kids. It's what we do to them. And so in closing, I will give you a phone number. And if you call, then I or someone from my team will respond immediately. And that number is 800-380-6836. Again, 800-380-6836. And I want to thank you for your time.
Oh, Dr. Sally, I'm just telling you, you know how much I love you. So no questions asked. I'm going to say, wait for the show to go off because you know I want to talk to you. But I have to say goodbye to our guests. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on the Educators Roundtable.
Absolutely.
So guys, we're closing the session tonight, which is part 6. Of course, part 7, we're going to come back. We're going to have a couple superintendents on next week. But education equity, and we have to think about, is education really lost? And where we are at this point, are we really providing our students what we need? Are we supporting our teachers and giving them the tools and resources that they need? Are we looking at how we can support parents? This is a very serious conversation. We're talking about education equity for our students in urban education, where they continuously test below grade level. So at some point, this real conversation has to transition to a real action item, an item that's going to transition how we teach and learn in our school districts. Thank you again. And if you ever want to be a guest on Educators Roundtable, you know what to do. Just click and sign up and we'll give you a call.